Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 18th episode of Exploring the Motherland. I'm your host, Garth. Exploring the Motherland's purpose is to continue to promote the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. The mission of Quest to Unite Africa is to promote critical infrastructure and economic development for the African diaspora and the African continent as a whole. We do this through our four main pillar strategies. Those four pillar strategies would be business, medical, technological innovation, and cultural engagement. The purpose of Quest Unite Africa is not only to talk about the different current news events that are going on the continent. They are also to help show you why we do what we do here at Quest Unite Africa and the mission, so it all encompasses. So without further ado, let's start the show. Thank you, family, for bearing with me. I'm a little late and usually a little bit more prepared, but we'll just, proceed. Why Mozambique's election has sparked weeks of protests and a violent police crackdown. As we see, brothers and sisters, we continue to see that there is protest going on in Africa, in West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, also in East Africa with Kenya, and also now here in South Africa, because Mozambique is the southern region of Africa. They're now protesting. And the main purpose of this protest is due to the fact that they feel as though the ruling party, since they got their independence from Portugal, which Portugal was the colony that this Mozambique was a Portuguese colony, but let me get to the point. So they are mad because the ruling party, since they've gained independence, has been ruling for almost 50 years now, and they believe this is due to some type of corruption, and it has caused a lot of chaos. So without further ado, let me play the clip, and then I will give the relevancy to why this is important to our mission and how we can help.
Hello and welcome. Let us begin in southern Africa, where protests are heating up in Mozambique over election results. Mozambique's opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane, has called for crippling protests this week over the contested 9th of October elections that were won by the ruling Frelimo party. The Frelimo party has been in power since the country gained independence from Portugal in 1975. Taking to social media, Mondlane, a 50-year-old former radio presenter, said that from the 13th of November to the 15th, protesters were going to paralyze all activities in the country. Now, reports suggest that Mondlane has asked his supporters to demonstrate in the capital of Maputo, the provincial capitals, and along the country's borders, and at the southern African country's ports. He has also urged truckers to stop bringing in goods from neighboring South Africa to the Maputo port. Now, the southern African nation has been rocked by violence ever since the Frelimo party's Daniel Chapo was announced the winner of the 9th of October elections with more than 71% of the votes. In contrast, Mondlane, who is the runner-up, won just 20% of the votes according to the election officials. The opposition, as well as several civil rights and Western observers, called the elections rigged as well as not free and fair. Human rights groups say that at least 30 people have been killed in 3 weeks of demonstrations over the contested election results. The opposition leader, Venancio Mondlane's call for crippling protests comes just days after Mozambique saw its biggest protest against the ruling party, which has been in power for nearly 50 years. Last week, thousands of opposition supporters marched through the capital city of Maputo. Many protesters threw rocks and set up barricades using burning tires and bins, while many others could be heard shouting slogans such as "Frelimo must fall" and "Power to the people."
We want change, that's all, just change. Nobody wants a war here. We're not looking to dismantle anything from anyone. You're looking at opportunists.
But the protests in Maputo on the 7th of November saw security forces, including heavily armed riot police and soldiers, flanked by armored vehicles, firing tear gas and dispersing the crowds by deploying dogs.
They can't do that. Things don't work like that. We are marching peacefully. We are not armed. We are not vandalizing anything. But the police are ruining everything.
And now the Mozambique police have been accused by human rights groups of using live ammunition against political protesters in the past. Last week, the defense minister of Mozambique, Gustavo Chume, also threatened to send in the military to halt the deadly protests that he said were aimed at overthrowing the government.
We would like to emphasize that demonstrations are violent. The role of the defense forces is to prevent them. We are called upon to react, and we react according to the acts perpetrated by the demonstrators, so as to be able to contain them. If the escalation of violence continues, there will be no alternative but to change our stance. The armed forces will have to protect the interests of the state.
Now, the protests on the 7th of November reportedly saw at least 3 people being killed and over 66 others injured. Ahead of the protests, in an interview with the media outlet Agency France Presse, or the AFP, Mondlane also noted that this was how the Frelimo party had been using brute force to silence dissenters for years.
They're not killings, they're murders. This has always been the way of Frelimo operates. I mean, first of all, Frelimo has never won an election since 1994. It's been 30 years that Frelimo has remained in power on the basis of force.
The country's Constitutional Council has requested clarification from the Electoral Commission on the discrepancies in the vote count. However, the Electoral Commission is yet to comment on the matter. While the ruling Frelimo has denied the vote rigging allegations, the protests have continued to create chaos in the country, which has only increased the suffering of the citizens, who are calling for all the parties to sit down together and find a solution to the conflict.
I think the situation is terrible. For better or for worse, what is happening is harming the population. We are the ones who are suffering. I think the parties should sit down and talk for the good of the population, because it is the population that is suffering.
But it is not just the Mozambicans who are calling for a peaceful resolution. Nations, organizations, and people outside of Mozambique, including Pope Francis, have also called for a resolution to the deadly protests.
The news coming out of Mozambique is worrying. I invite everyone to dialogue, tolerance, and the tireless search for just solutions. Let us pray for the entire Mozambican population, so that the present situation does not cause them to lose faith in the path of democracy, justice, and peace.
Other Catholic groups have also gone ahead and further expressed their support to the protesters. Reports suggest that members of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference, or the SACBC, have expressed their solidarity with the colleagues in Mozambique. The SACBC members, which include Catholic bishops from Botswana,
I'm not going
Eswatini, and South
bore you
Africa,
with
expressed their disapproval of
this
the repressive response to the
affiliation
peaceful
or this
protesters.
group family. Let me just skip
With
it.
more protests lined up in Mozambique,
Well, if I understood correctly, you want to understand about the credibility of the claims of Venancio Mondlane.
Okay, so basically what's happening in Mozambique is just highlighting failed Western ideology. And, you know, the people are tired of what's going on in Mozambique. They see that, you know, this is supposed to be a democracy, but there has been a ruling party in power for almost 30 years without any real opposition. And that doesn't make any sense, because within a democracy, there's always dissension. People are not always going to agree. So basically, there's corruption going on in Mozambique, and the people are at a standstill. Some people are protesting peacefully, and then, you know, some people are just fed up and frustrated and may have, you know, gone too far. But people as a whole have just been protesting, which is a right under democracy. But, you know, they have seen the corruption going on, and they really have their voices are being, you know, silenced. And this is just all example of how Western ideology cannot work in a country that is completely different and has different cultures and shares different values. And, you know, obviously colonization doesn't care about your cultural values or morals or ethics. They just come in there and bogart who's ever in power, and then uses them as a vessel to put out whatever, you know, influence or whatever ideology is, you know, under their control. So basically, in layman's terms, this is just an example of Western influence destroying the people of Africa, and specifically in Mozambique. They don't really have any outlets to even move forward, to even, you know, come together and, you know, resolve this issue of corruption and voting. So the whole system needs to be, you know, redone. You know, we can help our brothers and sisters through cultural engagement and try to, you know, basically be advocates for them to change their government and their structure, not so much really, you know, from a political standpoint, just from a, you know, a human rights standpoint, as to, you know, their sovereignty, what they, you know, value. And then we would incorporate that with different initiatives that help meet those goals of what they value and what they want rulership to be in their country, because obviously Western democracy is not working and has failed them, and the leaders aren't even completely utilizing or even, you know, practicing democracy in its actual, you know, theory or application. So this is just a way we can help connect with our brothers and sisters in Mozambique. And I will just continue to play the clips for more context.
Well, I think there is already a long, a 30 years history in Mozambique of accusations of election rigging and of electoral processes being controlled by hands outside the organs that are supposed to manage these processes. So there is a 30 years history of discredibility or lack of credibility in relation to the functioning of electoral bodies in Mozambique, including the courts, the police, and the highest court institution, which is the Constitutional Council. So because of that, it's very easy to for one to claim that there is election rigging. So apart from that, and people have seen through social media lots of acts of interference into the process. For example, people voting already or stuffing votes into the ballot box, pre-voted bulletins on behalf of the ruling party, mostly. And the people have also experienced situations where there's discrepancies in terms of the number of people registered for the 3 elections, because these were 3 simultaneous elections. It's the presidential, parliamentary, and also provincial. So there is a very big discrepancy in terms of the number of people who voted. So there is, in fact, some credibility to the claims of Venancio Mondlane and his supporters, as I said, because there is history of interference with the democratic processes in Mozambique, but there were also facts on the ground that prove that these elections cannot be considered as free, fair, and transparent, or if I might say, democratic.
Right. Right. And Fredson, how significant is the support for Mondlane's call for protests? I mean, we've seen huge support. And what potential impact could these demonstrations have on Mozambique's political stability? And what is the impact on daily life of the citizens?
Well, I will start from the end of your question, from the second question, on the impact on the daily lives. I mean, it's clear, as you see, Mozambicans have not been able to live a normal life for the past months because it has been a month after these elections were held. And since the beginning of these protests, the economy has not been able to run as properly. Most shops have been closing one day and opening the other. I mean, the state institutions also have been operating normally, and I also believe that this is going to continue like that. I also would like to add that the border between Mozambique and South Africa was closed. And this is a very important border because Mozambique relies substantially in the import of goods that come from South Africa, even for the daily life of the Mozambicans, of Mozambican families. So socially, it has been complicated. People have lost their lives. You mentioned around, if I understood correctly, around 60 to so people who have lost their lives. There's a number of people who were injured, and the society is divided. There are 2 centers of power in Mozambique today. One center, which is the de facto power that resides, in my understanding, in the hands of Mondlane, and the other center is the Juris power, which resides in the hands of Frelimo government. And Mondlane has been able to exercise power firmly. Yeah. But in terms of the political changes, I think this is a major development for Mozambique. No demonstration against electoral results have ever reached this dimension, this magnitude. Before, the center of contestations were on the countryside, but now they've moved to the urban areas.
Yes. Fredson, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you for being with us on First Post Africa and for your valued insights there.
Thank you.
And now joining us via video link to talk about the unfolding situation in Mozambique is Sadia Chisungo, Amnesty International Mozambique campaigner, who's going to give us an update on what's currently happening in Mozambique. A very good afternoon to you, Sadia. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
We've seen what's happening in Mozambique. We've seen, the genesis of the violence in Mozambique, ostensibly. So what role do the historical tensions between the ruling party, Frelimo, and the opposition, Renamo, play in the post-election violence? Is this perhaps, is this violence a continuation of long-standing political conflicts, or is it driven by new dynamics?
Absolutely. I would say, as many other people are saying right now, it's historical. Every 5 years, every election, the problems keep coming. Again, the same allegations, it doesn't change. The only difference right now is that those people that are on the streets, some of them, they don't necessarily have any political interest, but they see how the country is going and some of the big issues. And let's say right now we have doctors and health professionals, for example, striking. There are teachers, for example, threatening all the time to go to strike as well. We even had judges recently also threatening to strike. So we're seeing like new dynamics here. And also there are the kidnappings that happen in Mozambique. For a few years now, there is no specific explanation. So we also see people related to business that they're also fearing, for example, to invest in Mozambique because it's not safe for them. We still see a lot of things, the way Mozambique each day is discovering new resources, but in terms of like the practicality, some people just don't see any benefit of this. We see what's happening in Cabo Delgado as well, the fact that it's been 7 years.
And again, family, if you feel led to support, hit that hit that money sign, and you could send a sticker or a super gift. Dorothy Osborne says, Shalom, family. It sounds like they need a definite change in governance. Who, anyone? Well, I cannot substantiate that, but who knows, Sister Dorothy? That's definitely seems like it, because we've been doing. This is the 18th episode. You could check out all the other episodes of exploring the motherland in the playlist in the YouTube Q2A YouTube. You see that there has been a pattern of protests in these African countries. Kenya was one. There was protests in Rwanda. There was protests in Nigeria still going on. And then the next story, you'll see why there's protests in Ghana. I mean, it's all, all encompassing. It's all a cultural shift. They all understand what's going on. And, change is needed. Again, as the title I so appropriately titled, hats off to me. No, I'm just joking. I don't toot my own horn like that. But the fight for sovereignty and autonomy continues.
But also, people still don't have clarity on what exactly is happening in Cabo Delgado and all the resources. How is this going to reflect in the daily life of people? So there is quite a lot here. The levels of unemployment, there is quite a lot. But also on top of this new protest right now is how police have been repressing the protests in Mozambique. One of the big aspects that is also very important to mention as we analyze what's happening today is what happened on 18th of March in 2023, when young people in Mozambique decided to pay tribute to Rember Azagaya that had died a few days ago, and police responded with violence. And I remember young people saying that they would retaliate soon or later, because Frelimo cannot just decide from one day to another, say that people don't even have the right to pay tribute to their favorite rappers. So that's why today, if we look at the protests, we will always see a slogan of Povo no Poder, which
I will move ahead for the sake of time. All these news articles and videos and all the sources are in the description link. So basically, there's oppression going on by the government in Mozambique, and you are unable to create economic development and critical infrastructure when the people and the citizens are oppressed and they don't have the basic rights or fundamental rights to do anything. So we will continue to see what happens in Mozambique. Backlash as Ghana's president Akufo-Addo unveils self-honoring statue. Oh man, this is, I mean, I've told people this story and they have not believed me, but here we are. This man Nebuchadnezzar himself.
Moving on to Ghana in West Africa. The country will hold presidential elections next month, and ahead of it, the 80-year-old outgoing president is facing a storm of criticism for revealing a giant golden statue. And the statue is of nobody else but himself. Now, Ghana's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, who will be standing down in January after 2 terms in power, unveiled a statue of himself during a tour of the country's western region. The statue has not been erected by the president himself, but its construction was ordered by the western region's minister, who calls it a way to thank the president for the work that he has done in the last 8 years. The president himself boasts of fulfilling around 80% of his promises to Ghanaians. But for the Ghana public, it is not enough of an achievement for the president to unveil a statue of himself. And social media is now flooded with posts mocking and criticizing the move. Now, many are seeing the outgoing president's unveiling of the statue as a way of self-glorification, and some are questioning the importance of the statue when several key projects remain incomplete. Many are also highlighting the dwindling state of the economy in the country. Opposition leaders have also joined in, with some saying that people of Western region deserve better than the self-serving displays. So many in Ghana are calling for the statue to be pulled down after the president leaves office. Now, the cost of the statue is confirmed to be around 30,000 Ghanaian cedi, which is over $1,800 US.
Hey, that may be not a lot of money, but it's the principle. People are living in bad economic conditions. You haven't met all the initiatives that matter to them. The economy continues to struggle, and then you are like, yo, let me make a statue of myself to congratulate myself on what I've done, even though the results do not, what's the word? The results do not show any legitimacy or verify this statue. And yes, that's some Babylonian nonsense, as Sister Benetta Jones says. And yes, this is just pure arrogance. I mean, like, what a slap in the face to the people. How can you, make a memorial, commemorate yourself when you haven't done everything that you promised? But let me continue. Oops.
This is not the only indulgence that has placed the 80-year-old Ghanaian president in controversy. His pet project has sparked a major row in Ghana. The project is to build a national cathedral in the capital of Accra. It's a multi-denominational monumental undertaking to house religious services and state events. Its estimated cost, a whopping $400 million US. When President Akufo-Addo won the 2016 elections, he pledged to build the site in the glory and honor of God, who he said was gracious enough to grant him victory. But Ghana's economy could not meet the president's aspirations. The country had to raise money in order to fund the project. So far, around $58 million have been pumped into the project. And this is what the president's aspirations for the project look like. And this is what it looks like today. Now, it's a massive hole surrounded by wild plants in the heart of Accra. This hole has collected so much water that the opposition calls it the world's most expensive swimming pool. The project is currently stalled due to a lack of funds, and its incomplete status is once again being highlighted amid the statue row. While the outgoing president is praised for some of his developmental steps, like building infrastructure and scrapping secondary school fees, he has had his fair share of challenges and controversies. He is also accused by the opposition for looting of state lands, among other corruption allegations. This is one among the many cases where African leaders are being accused of leading a luxurious life, while people in their country face multiple challenges.
I mean, you literally see the three-headed, well, I don't even know what you would say, the axis, the three-headed axis of corruption and, African leaders, Ruto, and you saw Tinubu in Nigeria. Tinubu was using the government's funds to buy airplanes when, people in Nigeria couldn't even afford their own electricity or food, and the infrastructure and Nigeria is suffering, and people are unable to make a living because they need petrol, and the petrol distribution is terrible in Nigeria, and the price gouging for petrol is terrible in Nigeria. But I'm going on a tangent. Let me just play the next clip, and I'll give more context.
Is it a tribute to leadership or a show of vanity? Ghanaians are asking this very question after outgoing President Nana Akufo-Addo unveiled a statue of himself outside a regional hospital in Sakandi. This act, intended to honor his development efforts over 2 terms, has ignited a wave of controversy, with many citizens divided over its meaning and its timing.
Also, take in mind, this is the same guy who was criticizing the alliance of the Sahel states, and he was saying that they brought more instability to the region. I don't see Ibrahim Traore, making gold statues of himself in Burkina Faso. So, that's neither here nor there.
Placed prominently outside the Effian-Kwanta Regional Hospital, the statue was revealed as part of Akufo-Addo's thank you tour in the Western region, with Regional Minister Kwabena Okir Darko-Mensah explaining that it symbolizes the president's achievements in development. But to many,
Yeah, just bear with me. I lost internet. There's work going on at my house. Give me 1 second. Yeah, thank you for holding on. Yeah, this is very you know, what you call it, inconvenient. Give me 1 second.
Backlash echoes similar frustrations shared by citizens on social platforms. Many feel the statue symbolizes a misplacement of priorities, especially with significant issues still plaguing the country. It would be admirable if the president had allowed posterity to recognize and appreciate his work. One user wrote on X, a sentiment shared widely. This move brings Akufo-Addo into the ranks of other leaders worldwide whose statues have drawn backlash, reminding us of how leaders often face public skepticism when it comes to self-honoring monuments. In Uganda, for instance, President Yoweri Museveni faced similar criticism after statues of him were erected in multiple locations, a gesture that citizens saw as excessive given the country's economic struggles. Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe also faced outrage after commissioning a statue of himself, which many citizens felt ignored the nation's more pressing needs. Yet, Akufo-Addo's supporters argue that the president's contributions justify the tribute, especially his policy of free secondary education, which he cites as his most significant legacy. Under his administration, fees for secondary schooling were eliminated, a move many say has transformed education accessibility in Ghana. One admirer went as far as calling him the greatest president and the founder of Ghana's free education system, showing just how much weight his supporters place on his educational reforms. Similarly, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power since 1986, faced backlash after statues
All right,
of
thank
him
you for
were
bearing with
erected
me.
across
Just
the
for the sake
country.
of time,
Many
I'm going
Ugandans
to move
expressed
on.
anger.
And yes, Puccina, I was mean mugging because I was mad that I lost internet, but we're back and, continue to press on because this is important and people need to know what's going on. So basically, you saw the statue and you see what's going on, and I just want to also show one of the major problems going on in Ghana and why this move by the president is just, again, just very, very cringe, for a lack of a better term, and just, irresponsible. Because there's other needs or other initiatives that need to be met, and illegal mining is one of the biggest problems in Ghana. And that hasn't been addressed, and it has been destroying the environment, and that environment is vital for their economy. They're one of the biggest producers of cocoa, and the illegal mining has, degraded the soil and the environment, and they haven't done anything to, to stop the problem.
Ghana is struggling to boost its lucrative mining sector. Solid minerals account for 5% of the country's GDP and 37% of its total exports. Gold is the primary driver, making up 95% of Ghana's mineral revenue. It is the largest gold producer in Africa. Ghana also has huge deposits of diamonds, bauxite, and manganese. But beneath the surface lies a deadly plague known as galamsey in local parlance. It is illegal mining ravaging communities and waterways.
Illegal mining is destroying us. All that we are saying is we are calling on the president and his leadership.
Those in authority, those in power, please put a stop to galamsey. It's going to affect us in the long run.
With Ghana's 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections around the corner, galamsey has become a hot topic. The illegal mining activities pose threats to public health and the environment. Recently, a group of protesters, including activists, urged the government to do more to address the problem.
Galamsey has to stop. All our water bodies have been polluted. They say water is life. When water is life and our water bodies has been polluted, how can we live long? We don't want to fall sick. We don't want to go to the hospital, go and be on dialysis. We don't want to have kidney problems. We want to live long. We want to enjoy life. We say stop galamsey now or never.
When you are sick, you go to hospital. What do they give you? Is it not drip? It is water that medicine has been put inside. So if the waters are contaminated, where are the people going to? Too much suffering.
Artisanal and other small-scale miners produce about 40% of Ghana's total gold production, according to official figures. A little while back, Ghana's mining regulator, the Minerals Commission, said small-scale miners produced 1.2 million ounces of gold in the first 7 months of 2024. That's more than the entire production of 2023. However, it stated that 70 to 80% of the small mines are unlicensed. Experts say rising global gold prices have made galamsey more lucrative and attractive to unemployed young people in Ghana.
For me, before I would start, in fact, now I was not having anything. So I made myself say, no, me to have to go inside and get something. But the time entering inside, I get about 60,000. So I go in and I took boys and we start doing the galamsey.
Ghana has a long history of artisanal mining dating back to the 15th century. The official fight back against illegal mining started over 3 decades ago. The country enacted the Small Scale Gold Mining Act in 1989 to streamline artisanal mining. But efforts by successive governments have not yielded the desired results.
The fundamental cause of illegal mining is getting a place for them to work. That's the main issue. Yeah, so as far back as 1989, when small scale was legalized, the whole idea was that Minerals Commission should designate some land cost block area so that geological survey can do the investigations. And for 3 decades, government upon government or government after government will not pay heed to it.
Ghana's Minerals and Mining Act 2006 reserved small-scale mining for Ghanaian citizens only. However, reports indicate that foreigners are also involved in illegal small-scale mining. In 2013, a joint task force comprising the military and other security personnel was established, leading to the deportation of 4,500 Chinese nationals.
Okay, for the sake of time, this is the solution. We put in structures and measures that help combat illegal mining activity. We also set up different frameworks to make sure that the mining is responsible and sustainable and is not hurting the environment. And then we continue to help educate those who want to, do small scale mining or mining at that, any type of mining. And we make sure that they agree to the terms, agree to what is agree to how they mine, and then we just have a structure where people could be held accountable and that people are making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, just basically regulations and measures to help, combat illegal mining. And then we could be able to help Ghana where it matters, because everything else seems, trivial when your water supply is being poisoned. Next story, Mali director of Australian gold company arrested. So basically, to keep to the theme, the fight for autonomy, the Mali government junta, more specifically, has arrested a CEO of Remote Mining, an Australian company that's been mining in Mali for quite some time. There hasn't been any discrete or any real facts about the arrest, but one could surmise that there was illegal practices going on, and also unpaid taxes, which happens a lot when these foreign entities come in, use different resources and mines. And, you know, let me just continue with the clip for context.
Terence Houlihan, CEO of Resolute, and two of its other executives went to Bamako to hold discussions with mining and tax authorities. After being detained on Friday, their whereabouts and the reason for their detention is still unknown.
Local media said that the Malian authorities are accusing them of forging documents and destroying property. This has been denied by Resolute Mining. But up until now, there's been no official comment from the government about why this has happened. But it's coming at a context where there have been other arbitrary detentions of mining officials working with foreign companies.
Beverly Ocheng is a security analyst based in Dakar who specializes in global power competition in the Sahel region of Africa, including Mali.
One of the things that happened in September when another set of officials had been detained from a different company is that they were released days afterwards, after the government in Mali had an agreement with that company over the new mining regulation. These laws increased the military government's percentage stake in the sector by about 15%. So it's likely that this is just part of a tactic by the Malian military authorities.
After independence from France in 1960, the West African country has suffered droughts, rebellions, and 23 years of military dictatorship. Democratic elections began in 1992, but two coups in 2020 and 2021 overthrew the civilian.
All right, I'm only going to play it because they're going to put their Western spin on it, and, you know, we know how that is. So let me play a more relevant clip that will lend to what's going on from one of us.
Country. So there are reports which indicate that the authorities appear to have gone after an Australian mining concern, an Australian mining company that's operating in that country. So this video looks at the circumstances surrounding the arrest of the CEO of Resolute Mining Company. Resolute Mining Company is an Australian concern that's been operating in Mali for a couple of years now. Now let's go into the details of this matter, and please don't go away. I read today from African News in their publication of 11th of November 2024. It's titled Mali, Director of Australian Gold Company Arrested. And it says authorities in Mali have arrested the chief executive and two other employees of Australian gold mining company Resolute Mining while they were visiting the country to discuss an unspecified dispute, the company said on Monday. The three people, including Managing Director Terence Houlihan, were arrested last Friday in Bamako, the capital of Mali. In a statement on Resolute Mining's website, Andrew Ray, the company's non-executive chairman, said the three officials had been unexpectedly detained after a discussion about claims made against the company without giving further details. No information was given as to why the three people were still being detained 3 days later. The report also indicates that the Australian company has been working for years in Syama Gold Mine in Mali, a large-scale operation located in the southwest of the country. He says that this company owns 80% of the mine, while the remaining 20% is held by the Malian government. I just want to emphasize the ownership structure of this company, or let me say the operations of the company, because as we will discover further, as we go further, I want to say in this video, you will discover that the ownership structure may be part of the reasons for this disagreement between Mali and this company. The report says a Resolute company said the allegations against it were unfounded and that it had followed due process in conducting its business in Mali. The company is among the foreign firms that have for years dominated the mining sector in Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers. It says that companies are facing increasing pressure from the military, which seized power in 2020 and is seeking to shore up revenues from the mining sector. So our duty is to find out what are the reasons for this development, the reasons for the arrest of the CEO of this company. And we have a clue from the article written and published by the Business Insider Africa of 11th of November 2020. It's titled Resolute Mining Share Slump as Mali government holds CEO, staff in custody. It says Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, is witnessing a push by the government to capture a large portion of the gold revenues with the introduction of a revised mining code. The code seeks to boost government ownership in gold projects, part of efforts to funnel more mining profits into state coffers. Now, we said earlier that this Australian mining company, Resolute, it owns 80% of the mine, while the remaining 20% is held by the Malian government. Now, that means that if the Malian authorities, if they seek to increase their ownership of the operations of this gold mine, I think they are perfectly entitled to do so. You will agree with me that an ownership structure of 80% against 20% is simply not fair. And that's what we have been saying on this channel. The business concerns, especially the so-called investments in Africa, they are so lopsided and they do not appear at all to benefit the local people. So the government in Mali introduced a new mining code, and this new mining code allowed the state, that is the government, to acquire 30% of any given project, especially in the gold mining sector. So it could be that the Malian government wants to renegotiate the contract with a view to increasing their ownership or their control over this mining project. Remember also that Mali is not alone in this. A few months ago, Senegal decided that they have to renegotiate.
Again, for the sake of time, I will allow you all to look at that clip. All the clips and sources are in the description box. So yes, an 80 to 20% split is terrible. And the people of Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger are, leading that cultural shift to, naturalize resources and gain autonomy of the resources and reframing structures and deals that will help, promote economic growth and critical infrastructure. But here, more importantly, this gold is the gold is a resource for their own people, and it should be them benefiting from it from the most. So we will see that there's a cultural shift in now Africa, that now that governments are seeking, naturalization of their own minerals, and now they are making business initiatives that are fair and help benefit their people, which they may have not known, but now they've woken up to it, and we just continue to support them in that effort. And the last and final clip that lends more context to what's going on, basically on all of Africa, but more so in Mali.
And demanding Hello and welcome to this edition of Business Africa. I'm Ndea Yoka, and here are the week's headlines. Mali wants its gold. Facing foreign mining giants, Bamako is tightening control and demanding billions in unpaid taxes and dividends.
And Burn Bras, I understand your anger, but please try to watch your language. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to delete your comment because we don't curse on here.
In Tanzania, the mining sector is gaining momentum with the goal to explore 50% of the territory by 2030, while also boosting employment and infrastructure. And in Zimbabwe, real estate is becoming a safe haven amid economic uncertainty, attracting an increasing number of investors despite high prices.
Intensified actions against foreign
Stability from multinational mining companies, taxes or sovereignty, how far will the standoff go?
Mali, which is one of Africa's largest gold producers, faces a major challenge in its mining sector. For several months, the Malian government has intensified actions against foreign mining companies accused of tax evasion. On November 10, 2024, the arrest of Resolute Mining CEO Terence Holhan, along with 2 other employees, highlighted this increased assertiveness by authorities. The Malian government is reportedly seeking to recover between $438 million and $978 million in unpaid taxes and dividends, particularly from major mining companies such as Canada's Barrick Gold. Increasing the state share in mining projects is part of the government's strategy. However, this shift involves risks. A sector specialist warned of the potential consequences to this change. The first obvious risk is the reduction of foreign investment. It can deter investment if the state's share increases too much. Such a policy of renegotiating contracts could undermine investors' confidence, and some experts emphasize that it is crucial to create a favorable framework so that an increase in state's share is acceptable to companies. Mining companies aren't close to negotiation, so 30% itself is...
Yeah, they could say that, but I mean, it's their resources. They should just, say, you know what, let's, get the African diaspora to help us, teach us how to mine, and we don't have to rely on foreign mining companies to, export our gold or to, help us develop measures to be able to, distribute and to produce, because, like, who are they to come in and, say, oh, it has to be a more favorable split, because they're the ones who, need the gold, and they're the ones who are trying to seek some type of, trade. So obviously all the leverage are in, all the African countries have the leverage because it's their resources. So I think it's kind of pretentious to say that, they have to accommodate these mining companies. They're the ones who need the resources in Africa. So, I mean, I just think that's kind of ridiculous, but I'll let the clip play.
Isn't really the issue, but what conditions are being created around this 30%? The question that remains is if Mali is on the verge of nationalizing its gold mines. It's a controversial question that could redefine the relationship between the state and the multinational companies operating in the country.
Economist Boubacar Malalba joins us to analyze the situation. Welcome to Business Africa. With the revised mining code, Mali is increasing its share in mining projects. What are the benefits and risks for the country?
There is an issue that states need to consider: the quality of the reputation or habit. You see, these companies talk to each other, and when they enter a new market, they always seek information about the current authorities. When you are repeatedly challenging various agreements, you are ultimately harming your reputation. This means that there will come a time when investors lose confidence, thinking it's too risky to put all their resources in that
I'll
country.
stop the video. What is this guy? I mean, I understand his analysis, but whose reputation's at stake here? Who is the one who's been doing unfair practices? Who is the one who's been doing illegal tax evasion? You know, what is, I don't understand this notion that their reputation's on the line when they have all the leverage and they've been the ones who've been done wrong. And now that they want to, you know, for lack of a better term, get on code, now it's, you know, it's going to, you know, negatively affect them. No, they're going to just take their power in their own hands, and they're going to find a way to make it happen and not involve any multinational companies or foreign minds. You know, that's where us, the African diaspora, come into play, and we help each other and we grow, and we see the self-determination of our people, and we help them make their future on their own terms and their own critical infrastructure and economic development. This notion or this disposition this gentleman's speaking from is just antiquated thought process that doesn't apply anymore as the West and its influence is crumbling.
They might end up dealing with risk takers instead of well-established companies. And when I see a capital distribution that's 80-20, it raises questions. I'm not sure if that's standard in this industry, but it doesn't seem right. How can a country exploit its own resources and only hold 15 or 20% of the shares in the company exploiting them, especially when it comes to gold? You see, the thing with gold is that there is no VAT per se on it. VAT is created through craftsmanship around gold, so we need to determine what shares goes to Malian artisans to allow them to work, create wealth, and drive development.
How do you view the Malian government's intensifying actions against multinationals, highlighted by the arrest of Resolute Mining CEO?
As long as both parties see benefits, they'll always find common ground. But the approach is equally important. I think negotiations have been going on since 2016. They were supposed to conclude in 2019, and they even had a preliminary agreement before the coup. There is a trend in the Malian government to reclaim control over mining operations, but the challenge for the government is that they are driven by a strategy of national sovereignty. They know actions like these are popular with the population, especially when they see the government standing up to foreign entities. It's impactful. This strategy is good for communication, but it has to be backed by substance. And again, we only have part of the picture. We don't know how the European companies reacted. Could it be that the Western companies acted condescendingly and frustrated the Malian authorities, who then decided to stand their ground? So who's to say this? Isn't it a case of robbing Peter to pay Paul?
With the state increasing its stake in mines up to 35%, is Mali moving towards nationalizing the sector?
I believe Mali should not have just a single national company, but rather several national players, 2 or 3 national companies. These national actors could partner with the Canadians or Australians, for instance. The goal is to create national champions. We need to stop depending on foreign champions in our own countries. We are essentially recreating the economic system inherited from colonialism. For a country where a quarter of the national budget depends on gold and 3/4 of its exports are gold, I think it's high time Malians consider creating their own major mining company to exploit Malian gold. Mali is one of the world's top gold producers, yet there is no major national mining company. That's not normal.
Mr. Madalba, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
After Mali, which is reinforcing its hold on gold, we turn to Tanzania, which is committed to strengthening its mining sector with a focus on local resource transformation. The Tanzanian government is conducting a national study of all its mineral resources. This research will be complemented by the creation of processing facilities, which will increase the value of the country's mineral wealth.
The 6-phase government is committed to continue working and supporting economic research and policy analysis. Our ambition in government is to scale up research funding and investment in research supportive infrastructure.
The Minister of Mines says only 16% of Tanzania's territory has been explored for mineral prospecting. Despite this, the sector already contributes significantly to the GDP, and the government aims to cover 50% by 2030.
Government statistics indicate that the employment within this sector has significantly increased over the past 3 years, with more than 16,000 jobs created in large and medium-sized mining operations by 2022.
Tanzania's mineral exports include gold, lithium, tin, helium, nickel, cobalt, titanium, copper, aluminium, niobium, and rare earth elements.
Our target is that by 2025, mining should contribute at least 10%.
Give me a second. What am I doing here? Okay, so that's all I have for today. You see what's going on. The Mali government is reframing legislation and laws to create business initiatives that give them a better split on their own resources, and then there's a cultural shift for them to have control of their own resources. So we all see the potential to help or give our expertise where it's needed in order to help, for lack of a better term, free our people who want to basically have their own resources and have their own government and economy. And this is what we do at Quest Unite Africa. We try to analyze what's going on in the continent and how we can help, promote economic development. No, I'm not going to air quotes that. That's what we believe. Economic development and critical infrastructure. So everyone, thank you for tuning in, and catch me next Friday. And Shabbat Shalom.